You want to look back on President Trump, he passed 5 coronavirus bills with bipartisan support, and President Biden didn't do that with bipartisan support. He
But
didn't
Amanda,
even care to do it with
that's an
bipartisan
indictment of
support.
Republicans. That's an indict. The fact you're absolutely right. When it was Trump saying we have to get money to businesses and the American people, Democrats didn't say we are going to deny this to Trump merely because he's in the other party. Republicans that I can
think you're
imagine.
misinterpreting what I said.
No, I don't think so.
Using your own facts.
Woke David Snake Man, as we like to call him, gets absolutely obliterated by a female MAGA supporter, and she even has a few things wrong, which we will get into. But make sure you like today's video, subscribe, comment David Snake Man if you know, and let's get straight into the video.
And basically since the pandemic is that it's essentially a party of no. It's we don't want to do infrastructure. We don't want to do coronavirus guidelines. We don't want to do DACA. We don't want to do tax reform. We don't want to. So there's been really no substantive proposals of policy of what they want. Certainly, we don't want to do any changes to gun legislation. Now, I've said, I don't know that it's a bad strategy for Republicans. And what I mean by that is when you look at a candidacy like Madison Cawthorn, for example, his aide or his staffer straight up said, we're not running a policy office. We're running a communications office. It's memes and tweets and talking about I can put 2 guns on my wheelchair and all this sort of stuff. So my question is, do you think that this is a viable long-term strategy? It might actually be. Like, I don't know that the Republican Party really needs policy given who's voting for them right now.
Well, the Republican Party doesn't control.
You see that little insult that David Snakeman like slithers into the conversation? Who needs policy when you are appealing to Republicans because they're so stupid they don't care about policies themselves? Thank you, David Snakeman.
Control a single lever of the government in Washington right now.
But the last 2 years of the Trump administration, they did.
They had the Senate.
And the White House.
They had the White House and they had the...
This is where David Snakeman is kind of correct here because Republicans do not do things enough. The first 2 years of Trump's first term as the president of the United States, he had Congress and the Senate and the Supreme Court. He had everything, every single branch of government. We had Republican control. But what did we get done? Not that much, because we had rhinos stampeding and blocking our ability to get things done. So honestly, David is correct here, and she's kind of going into this with a losing argument.
The Senate.
Yeah.
And the House was controlled by Democrats.
Right.
So if you're talking about right now, because you were talking about topics for right now, because certainly Trump tried to do infrastructure and the Democrats said no. But if you're looking at issues right now, I mean, look, Mitt Romney did an interview, and, you know, Mitt Romney is the king of rhinos, I guess you could say. I mean, he would probably...
I would say the queen of rhinos for Mitt Romney personally. That's what most smart people would say.
Be the most moderate, the most willing to work with Democrats. And even he has said that going at this alone on the coronavirus bill, relief bill, was wrong. He and I believe it was 9 other Republican senators visited with the president at the beginning of February and said, Mr. President, let's pare this bill down. Mr. President, we have other ideas. And President Biden not only did he not listen, I mean, he didn't pay attention to a single one of their interests. And it sounds like staff was involved in this.
Yeah.
So be it. The point is, if you want to look back on President Trump, he passed 5 coronavirus bills with bipartisan support, and President Biden didn't do that with bipartisan support.
But Amanda,
that's where I feel like Trump lacks. It's not a good thing that Trump has passed so many COVID relief bills. Kind of cringe.
that's an indictment of Republicans. That's an indictment. The fact you're absolutely right. When it was Trump saying we have to get money to businesses and the American people, Democrats didn't say we are going to deny this to Trump merely because he's in the other party because the American people need it. When Democrats said, okay, well, now it's us, we'll do a relief bill that's very similar to what Trump did, Republicans said we're not participating at all. So what you've just said is arguably the biggest indictment of the obstructionist Republicans that I can imagine.
I think you're misinterpreting what I said.
No, I don't. think so.
Using your own facts, because what I said is that the Republicans went to visit with President Biden,
Yeah.
and he dismissed everything that they said. He didn't take a single thing into account. He didn't even work with them. He didn't even come to the table and say, let's sit down and talk. They had
What
one
concessions
meeting,
did
and the
Trump
meeting
make
went
to
away, and
Democrats?
he learned.
See, this is the thing. Democrats don't want to appear that they're working with Republicans because their entire platform is that Republicans are evil, vile human beings, or sad excuses, evil excuses for human beings. So, of course, they don't want to reach along or on the other side of the aisle and work with us. So, I kind of wish that Republicans did that more. However, if I do like that maybe Chunky Yogurt wants to work with Trump to defund the Pentagon. That's good. I'm against military spending, so I'm all in favor for reaching across the political aisle in order to get a policy preference that I think would benefit the country done. That is okay. However, Democrats don't do that. They don't grant that to Republicans. And Donald Trump, I think, grants that too often and too much to Democrats, quite frankly.
Blamed it on staff, as did Republicans, the staff saying, we're not interested.
But what concessions did Trump make to Democrats on the COVID bills?
Kennedy Center funding, certainly other pieces of the bill that ultimately the law that Republicans were raked over the coals for. I know
Kennedy Center, wasn't that like $3 million or something?
It doesn't matter. It's the fact that, this is what's interesting to me.
Yeah.
President Trump was impeached by the
House. It's never enough money with these leftists. Oh, only $3 million. Okay, $3 million wasted is still $3 million wasted.
House. And then 3 months later, he has Nancy Pelosi sit down with Stephen Mnuchin because Trump and her didn't have a relationship.
Right.
And he said, sit down and work something out for the American people. And they did. That's leadership. You don't pout and say, I don't like her, so I'm not going to work with her. I think that's what Biden did. Biden said, I don't have to work with you guys because we have 50-50 and Kamala will be the tie-breaking vote. So I don't have to work with you guys. So I'm not going to.
Right.
Yeah, Joe Biden's like the Regina George of politics. You can't sit with us, but the difference is he's like an old senile man that likes to sniff children. And I've never seen him wear pink, which might be the best thing about him, quite honestly.
Trump, but I think isn't the difference, Amanda, that Trump would have done that if he had had the luxury of having anything to, it was just a reality.
We can't work in hypotheticals, but I look at someone who was impeached in the House by Nancy Pelosi, and 3 months later, she sat down with his Treasury Secretary and hammered out a bill for the American people.
But the reason she had to sit down with Mnuchin was Trump, didn't want to play in the sandbox with her anymore because of the impeachment. It's sort of like a criticism of Trump, really.
He had his proxy work with her. The ultimate result was a COVID relief bill, wasn't it?
Yeah, just like with Biden, right? The ultimate result was a COVID relief bill.
A partisan COVID relief bill.
Is it partisan if 75% of Americans support it? That's tens of millions of Republicans. What's partisan?
COVID relief, of which 90% of this bill does not go to COVID relief.
We've debunked, I've debunked that extensively. I don't want to jump into that. So let's not jump into that. In the few minutes we have left, what is the policy right now that you think Republicans should be focusing on? What policy? Now, I know you're saying, well, they don't control anything right now. Okay, fine. But when Trump controlled everything, you still had Democrats proposing things and saying, this is what we would like to see. What are the main policy points you think would be advantageous to the Republican Party right now to be working on?
Well, the Republican Party can't work on anything right now.
He just said that, bitch. Come on.
It would have been nice if the Democrats proposed an actual infrastructure bill because, as you know, infrastructure is a key word for bipartisanship.
Right.
But when you have a bill that's introduced that even Democrats can't agree on, where the majority of it is not for actual roads and bridges.
But this isn't my question.
Oh, this is such a cringe interview. On honestly both their parts. Okay. He just said, you're going to say, oh, Republicans don't have the power, so we can't do anything. And she proceeded to say that. So she's not the best Trump advocate. I will admit that myself. But if you enjoyed today's video and laughed along with me, make sure you like today's video, subscribe. Comment down below David Snakeman because he likes to slither around the questions, as we know. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. Thanks for watching.